Hi, I'm Lucas Mack, and I'm on a mission to see the hurting get healed and the healed go out and heal others, in order for all of us to experience the true love and light we desire. This podcast is me sharing my journey with you, so you don't feel alone in your journey. Welcome to the Golden Rule Revolution. Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome back to another episode of the Golden Rule Revolution. I am Lucas Mack. Thank you for joining. I am really excited to bring this episode. I had a great conversation with Dr. Jon Connelly. He has developed a new type of therapy to help trauma victims, and we talk about a lot of different things in this episode. And Jon's perspective, how he got into what he's doing, and he has helped countless people all over the world with this methodology. It's called rapid resolution therapy. And this is a fascinating episode and a fascinating story how he got started. So I'm really excited to bring Dr. Jon Connelly, and everyone enjoy. Well, everyone, like I shared in the intro, I'm really excited for this podcast. I have Dr. Jon Connelly on, and I had someone reach out to me and introduce me to Dr. Jon and his work. And I started reading and doing a lot of research. And first of all, I'm curious. I'm excited to hear this whole concept of a quick change from Dr. Jon and conversation, but also I'm excited to honor someone doing the work of seeing the world heal. And that is, one of the missions that I'm on in this time and space that we find ourselves in. So Dr. Jon Connelly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Lucas. And calling me Jon is just fine.
Okay. Well, Jon, I appreciate you coming on. Tell me how'd you get into this work? What's the background of you even becoming a social worker and then doctorate?
That's a long, sad story. You really want that? Here we go.
I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
So I bumbled my way through college, got a degree in history, got out, and realized that I couldn't do anything. I kept looking for want ads for, historians. Nobody seemed to want a bachelor's level history guy. I thought I had to go out and make a living. And someone said, well, what did you do in college? And I said, well, I wrote some papers and took some tests. And they said, did you pass the tests? I said, well enough to graduate. And they said, go here to this address and tell them you want to take tests. And I really did. And I went to that place and I started taking tests, and it was a civil service place. And so I was taking different tests for different kind of jobs. And next thing I knew, I got hired, and I was now a child protective service worker.
Wow.
Which up until the time that I had the job, I didn't even know there was a job like that. That's how much background I had in that whole thing.
Yeah.
And I found out my job was to, if there was an allegation alleging abuse of a child, I was supposed to drive over and knock on the door, say howdy, go in, investigate the situation, do what I could to remedy that situation, if it could be, and in an emergency situation, to do things involving the courts or in an emergency basis, just myself, to make sure children were protected. So, Lucas, I didn't know I asked from a hole in the ground in terms of how to do any of this. I mean, my whole background is, I studied the Revolutionary War or something.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to knock on a door and say, excuse me, sir, I just here kind of want to chat with you about how somebody's alleged you're being a little sexual with your teenage daughter. Could we come in and have a conversation about it? Scary as hell.
Yeah.
Doing that. And I did that. And I did it for a number of years, Lucas, and I was exposed to, oh my goodness, there's all kinds of really ugly stuff going on affecting children. I went from there to another job where I was working with kids 12 through 17 who had run away or been thrown away by parents. And again, oh my goodness, there's some really tough stuff going on for people. And another quick story, then I ended up going to graduate school, and then they told me I was supposed to be a psychotherapist, and I wasn't sure how I was supposed to do that. And then I took a weekend course in how to be a hypnotist. I thought that might be interesting. Maybe people would stop smoking or something. Young lady came in, and I thought, you must have to stop smoking because you're trim and buff and look great. Yeah. So it's not about weight loss, must be smoking. I said, what's going on? She said, I got raped. And I said, well, how is that something you want to tell me about? And she said, I can't remember anything about the guy who raped me. What do you mean nothing about the guy? She says, I don't know whether he was 17 or 70. I don't know whether he was white or black. I don't know whether it's fat or thin. And Lucas, that was so disturbing to her for the obvious reason that to me, the obvious reason is, oh, I feel ashamed of not knowing. Oh, I can't help the police catch the bad guy. But you know what? The worst thing about it was for her, she couldn't look around the room and know he wasn't in it. Which I would have never thought of that, but that was the worst part. Somehow I bumbled through that thing and got an A+ on it. I asked her if I could record it. We did. She ended up much more comfortable and with tremendous detail. And next thing I knew, a couple hours later, I get a call from this guy and he says, this is Detective blah, blah, blah. And I understand you actually did some kind of hypnotic thing with one of my rape victims. Yes, sir. I actually did it. And you recorded it? Yeah, I did. Well, give me the recording. I'll be right there. Yes, because she had given me her permission. He came over. He looked like a detective. I mean, he was wearing a wrinkled trench coat.
Wow.
I hand him this little cassette. You might read about them in the history books. We used to record things on those. I gave it to this guy. He called me up the next day and he says, what the hell? And I said, what the hell? Why? And he said, I had the very worst crime victim I've ever had. She couldn't even tell me anything. 1, 2, she's freaking terrified and miserable. And then she met with you and she told me more than anybody ever does. Wow. I mean, incredible detail. And he said, by the way, she's calm. He said, this is a serial rapist. He's raping people faster than we can list them. Will you work with the rest of the victims? I said, oh my goodness. I mean, I couldn't even believe I'm getting asked to do this. Next, my office is filled with police, sex crime unit, FBI agents, all kinds of stuff. And then they catch them. I still remember the name of the detective. I don't even remember to call my mom, but the detective was Detective Lieutenant Richard Dormer, head of the Major Crime Bureau Task Force on the Railroad Rapist. And he gave this interview and he said, we particularly want to thank this young guy. We couldn't have done it without him. Wow. And I was like in heaven. So that was a beginning of an interest in that aspect of trauma. Then they just kept bringing people to me around rape and even homicide, but I didn't do well with homicide victims. They just wouldn't talk to me.
Yeah. I was going to say that. Yeah. I talk a lot about soul contracts. Have you heard of the concept of a soul contract?
Tell me.
So the concept of a soul contract, and I have my own spin on it. So I'll kind of tell you what the major theme is of it. And I'll tell you my nuanced view of a soul contract. A soul contract is that our souls made agreements with every single person we encounter in this realm. So you and I had a soul contract at some variant before we entered this body to have this podcast. Like I look at that everything, the law of free will exists prior to us in this physical realm and will exist well beyond we leave this physical realm. So that we all have soul contracts. And those that traumatize our teachers, as well as those that are kind, and everything's this lesson that we're here to learn in this earth school in a way. Well, and my nuanced view of it is that if the universe is based in love, meaning not this emotion, but the very essence of giving. In Hebrew, the word for love is ahava, which means to give. So love simply gives. It's like oxygen. You and I both have oxygen in the room, and it's just giving to us, and that allows us to live. That's essentially what I believe like love is. Not from religious, and I guess I could jump into a spiritual aspect, but more of a very practical expansion. The universe expands because it's constantly giving. And yet, so many of us have had things taken from us. Our sense of self-worth, our innocence, our memories from trauma. Like there's so many things that take place in this physical body that take from us, and people oftentimes do it in the name of love. It's the complete abomination of the universe is that, like as I coach parents, I help a lot of men do healing work, and I don't believe in hitting children. And how they say, well, if you love your child, hit your child. It's like, well, how much do you love them? If you show them how much you love them, beat them to death. If you really love them, no, that's ridiculous. Well, also is hitting a child is ridiculous. What does a child want? To be hit or held? Held. What does a child, so anyway, I don't want to deviate beyond what you're saying. I'm fascinated by you if you've heard of a soul contract, because what is soul contract in my view that you have to do this work and to stumble into it in a way and bring so much resolution where there was confusion or where there was anxiety. And I just want to honor you for that. I think it's tremendous.
Well, it's so kind of you. You're a super bright guy, Lucas, and you're experiencing and looking at things through so many layers and dimensions and such complexity, and then bringing that all down home where you can where there's all that, should it be useful, but you get right in there with that individual and make a difference in his life, her life, that child's life,
right?
And spread the word in the way you're doing now. So that how can I not have great respect for what you're offering?
Thank you. Can you share life growing up? Like what was your life growing up? And did you experience what you're helping people heal from? And what was your life?
Oh, I was, I was traumatized too, but differently. I was shy, backwards. I was a kid, picked last in gym class. I didn't seem like I was able to thrive within the school system. I was self-conscious. I was shy. I would cross the street rather than walk past somebody. And yet, in my contacts with people and things I've done to assist folks, I got I got away pretty easy. There are certainly things that are just like much more horrific. I might have gotten spanked and gotten angry. I didn't get tied up naked and burnt with cigarettes.
Yeah. You've seen the worst of humanity, or the effects of it anyway.
I've seen some ugly stuff, and it's been my privilege to make a difference. I was thinking the other day, like, what am I looking to do? And somebody said, it seems like you're looking to end human suffering. And I thought, Well, yeah, that's an awful broad one. I need to have a shotgun with a good scatter facility to hit all those targets.
Yeah.
I'm specifically looking to eliminate the suffering that people experience when they're looking to do things to end suffering.
Yes.
I'm looking to cause the process of getting better, of no longer being stuck, of no longer dealing with anxiety, grief, depression, jealousy, turmoil, horror, the effects of trauma. I am looking to cause it to be when somebody says, all right, I'm going to go and do what I can do to get myself into the best possible life, that doesn't drag them through additional suffering. And that's a big enough job for me to get anywhere near getting that done. And so that's my focus.
Beautiful.
How to make it be that if somebody says, this is what's going on for me, and this is why I'm hurting, to somebody and saying, well, would you assist me, that they get good, useful assistance to get them better, and to get them better as quickly and painlessly as can happen. That's what I'm looking to do.
It's beautiful. Beautiful. It's
Thank
interesting.
you.
I was talking to someone. I got asked to speak at this men's summit that's later in the month of March, and the facilitator of it had his first conversation with me. I got referred to him, and so we hopped on a call, and we were just talking about trauma. He actually was speaking about the nice guy syndrome, and I said, yeah, I was a prolific people pleaser. Like, so you were maybe shy and couldn't engage, and it was like anytime I engaged with someone, it was like, oh, you want me to jump 10 feet? Okay, I'll jump 10 feet. Oh, 10 feet wasn't high enough. Okay. Like, I'll just keep going until I get that recognition or someone just to tell me I'm good enough, smart enough, safe enough, enough. And there's so many spectrums of this human fractal that we're all sharing. You didn't get seen the way you needed to get seen, and maybe didn't want to be seen. I don't know. That's your story to tell. And yet all of us go through life with some sort of trauma. And I really believe that, like the rape victim, I'm also a survivor of that. Okay. So I say this with the most gentle love for every person that's gone through these things, is that we are more stronger than the perpetrator. We are more powerful than the person who committed that act to try to take our power. And in some weird cosmic tale of the hero's journey, we forget when these acts happen that we are more powerful. They didn't take our life. They might have tried. We might have tried to be assisting in that. Like you're saying, maybe sometimes people are trying to get out of it. But I just think it's so beautiful that no matter what humans go through, we come out on the other side of trauma, not to be victims of it, but with your help, hopefully mine and many others, to help people remember that you're more stronger than it.
I love what you're saying, Lucas. I have currently doing lots of trainings online. Used to be doing things in person and flying around more like that. And I remember if I'm going to be doing trainings and teaching people about how do you meet with somebody and clear trauma, that that's what we're going to talk about. So I might begin the training saying something like, hey, I'm going to be with them for a few days. I say, hey, I'm excited to be with you. And we're going to, I think, deal with some interesting stuff. By the way, how many of you folks have been raped? And there would be 3 hands go up out of the 100 people, And then 2 days later, I said, I forget what came up with that. Remind me, guys, how many of you guys have been raped? And all of a sudden, there are 35 hands where there were 3.
Right.
And I would find some way to make some dumb joke of that, like, what have you been doing in the past couple of days?
Yeah.
But what actually happened is that shame disappeared.
That's right.
And I'll ask people, I say, how do you know how you can tell if you did a good job while being raped? I don't know whether anybody's asked you something that crass.
No.
But generally, no. What do you mean? How do I know? Well, it's a good job.
Right.
While getting raped. Well, I said, check your pulse. You got one? Well, you did a good job.
Yes.
Because the main objective while getting molested, raped, terrorized is be alive at the other end of it.
That's right.
If you're alive at the other end of it, you won that. You absolutely won that.
That's right.
You know how you'll see sometimes a license plate that says former prisoner of war? So a little boy says, Daddy, what is that? Well, son, that man had been in a battle, I think, and he was captured and imprisoned. Well, why did he put that on his license plate? Well, son, because he's proud. If you're driving down the road in your Toyota and you were in a prison camp, guess what? You won.
Yeah.
So good. I'm waiting to go to the license plate bureau and have a lovely license plate there. I can picture it in my mind. I've thought of it for a long time, and it says, "I was gang raped," and have as many people buying that as the prisoner of war plate or all the other plates, so that survival is recognized as triumph, as victory. And my goodness, even those who haven't been raped have, just by the nature of the culture, the society, our bodies and things we're given with, hey, if you're still alive, you survived a whole lot of shit.
That's right.
So when I meet somebody, I sometimes feel like, that guy walking through the jungle, the plane just crashed. And then I run into you and it's, whoa, you made it too.
Yeah.
Where were you sitting?
Yeah, that's right. That's beautiful. It's a beautiful and worthy. First of all, I talk about this a lot on my podcast. I believe the majority of humans have dealt with sexual abuse. People either can't remember it or don't want to talk about it yet. But the root word of shame is shh, silence, be quiet, don't talk about it.
I haven't thought of it that way. I'm probably going to quote you.
Yeah, please. It's the same phonetics, it's the same intention, and it's the same result. Be quiet. Be quiet. Don't talk about it. And what I'm on a mission, I have been beaten, molested, raped, I have gone through, feel like hell on this earth, only to desire to bring heaven somehow through this journey. Suicide attempt survivor.
That's so good.
Ran away from home, all the stuff. And yet my brother and I, we talk about it like we made it out. And
yeah, that's the deal. If you got a pulse, you won the war.
That's right. We won. There's a line that I'm going to bring. This is how podcasts go. But Lil Wayne, the rapper, has a line that I just love. He says, "Don't call me sir, call me survivor." And I like, that's acknowledge the fullness of what I've gone through, not just the veneer of what you see. And I feel like when we start honoring the truth of people's healing journeys more than we honor the ego that's presented that protects the wound, we will change the society in an instant.
I think that you're really onto something really significant, being concerned about shame and what you said about the beginning of it. I'm definitely going to remember that. That was a great learning from you. But one of the things I do that I'm excited about to introduce people to this process I've developed called rapid resolution therapy. Every Monday evening at 7 o'clock Eastern time, I do a free open group. It's called Solutions. And in that group, people are raising their hands and I say, what's going on? And that individual tells me what's going on really authentically and asks for some guidance and a different perspective on it. And we just go from one person to the next, cover a lot of people in a 2 or 3 hour time span. That's my contribution. That's available. That's free. If anybody has an interest in it, it's you can go to the website rapidresolutiontherapy.com and you can register right there on the homepage for the solutions group. It's a good way to kind of step into the waiting pool of what we're offering. But the point is not just to do a little ad for that group, but I'm wanting to comment on your concern about shame, because there are people one after another really being open. I mean, really, really being open about all kinds of stuff, everything you could imagine stuff. And what comes to me from that is these people are stepping into the power of transparency. And I remember a while back, I was doing a group and some gal got up and started telling her story, and some other person raised his hand and said, I really appreciate your willingness to be vulnerable. And my response was, she's the least vulnerable person in the room here. She stepped into transparency and power and out of shame and into power. I think it's one of the things that I think is so disturbing is that everybody seems, many people, most everybody seems to have the impression that everybody else has their shit together.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, when I grew up, the answer to how you're doing is always fine. Gosh, I guess I was mean-spirited one day. This waitress walked over to me. My coffee cup was almost empty. She's holding the thing, and she just said, how you doing there? And I said, oh, my goodness, I've been waiting for somebody to ask all day. Let me tell you, I mean, earlier I went to the dentist. I thought it was just going to be a quick checkup. But you know what? And I see this gal backing up, face white, eyes wide with terror. And I said, yes. And she said, I didn't really want to know. She said, I just meant, do you want me to warm up your coffee? And so fine. Everybody seems fine, except for now with the whole social media thing, people aren't fine anymore. Everybody's like amazing.
Yeah, they stepped it
amazing. There was this guy I used to pass by regularly. I'd say, how you doing? He'd say, how am I doing? Awesome. Why would you have to ask me how I'm doing? One day, finally, after I said, how you doing? He did that same thing. He says, and how are you? And I said, I think I'm depressed. He said, depressed? How could you be depressed? I said, I get depressed every time you tell me you're awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. And that is awesome.
That is awesome, right? So we're all into awesome.
You know,
go on.
When you're with your group, and by the way, I'll put the show notes. I'll put everyone listening. You'll how I do it. Put the show notes or the link to everything in the show notes. But I find with the group work, it's so powerful because the first person sets the tone, but then the person that follows can't be less transparent or get, there's this beautiful building upon itself. And it's like, if I take my mask off, everyone else feels permission to take their mask off. And it's like, here, we're going to look at it. And so I find that group work in that intention, in that setting, is really beautiful.
Well, it attacks shame, whereas psychotherapy, as I was taught to provide it, almost seemed, Lucas, to promote it. I mean, the most significant thing, the most sacred charge, was to keep your dirty secret. I talked to a fella I met at a conference, and he said, I've made such an improvement in my practice. And I said, what made it better? He says, well, I hired a carpenter. And I said, how did a carpenter make your practice better? He said, we've created an exit that's separate from the entrance. And I said, yeah, but what was, he says, so people go in the indoor and out the outdoor. Do you get it? And I said, no. I mean, it sounds great, but spoon feed me, dude. I'm not too smart. Well, help me get it. And he said, the guy going in doesn't see the guy leaving. And I said, yeah. And he says, yeah. I mean, what a crazy thing to be excited about.
Yeah.
I don't want you to know that I would be where you're on your way to.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, I'm leaving, you're coming. How is it horrible for me to see you're walking into what I'm walking out of?
Right.
I mean, but that whole shrouded in secrecy, and when what I think often happens is that the secrecy that the mental health profession shrouds itself in, with the supposed interest in protecting the secrets of the people they work with, is actually serving a higher mission, which is that it's a way to protect the secrecy of their own incompetence.
Yeah.
And I think that the mental health industry shares with the educational industry and the substance abuse industry and a number of other industries that they blame the people that they weren't competent to assist. That mental health people and educators.
Yeah.
I don't remember anybody in the mental health field telling me, gosh, I wasn't that useful to this gal I was seeing, and so I told her I was sorry. I just didn't have the skill. Never.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
You're resistant. You weren't ready to change. You were too this. You weren't motivated enough. Blame who they weren't useful
Spank
to.
the child. It's a spank the child model. It's
And
like, you're
yes.
not behaving the way I want you to. Therefore,
Yeah, and of course the educational system also never takes responsibility, but seems to look to motivate people with a combination of public shaming and bribery. That's what it looks like from here. So if you need somebody to say a lot of nasty things about either of those systems,
good. Well,
I'm your guy there.
Well, then you're in good company. I really believe, Jon, that we're entering the age of Aquarius, which is the age of water, which is the age of feminine energy, which is the age of truth being revealed gently, but also swiftly, that it's coming, that every institution, we're seeing all the institutions crumble. Politics is crumbling. The monetary systems are crumbling. The education systems are crumbling. Everything's crumbling, and people are they're looking around looking for answers, but we're going to find that the answer is within, and the answer is only from expressing our own truth, standing in our own power, taking our own mask off, not having to say to a couple, do you agree, or do you believe this, or do you know these, the tests that you are taking. We're getting away from that, and we're going to share these human experiences that make us truly human, which is the pain, finding purpose, healing, resolving, teaching the next generations how to be stronger, how to be more open, how to be, it's interesting, you're saying the power of transparency. And I gave this TED talk, breaking the cycle of child abuse. And the subline was the vulnerable hero's journey. And I was trying to, and I still do in a way, but I don't talk about it as much, but trying to redefine the word vulnerable, as opposed to, like, I know Brene Brown came out with her stick, and this word vulnerable was coming up, but I was defining vulnerability as the courage to experience love in its purest form. And like I started the podcast believing that love is just like oxygen. It's ready to enter our hearts, but until we step through that in courage, drop the armor.
I get it. I would say it a little different. I would say something about stepping into the power to experience love in its purest form, because vulnerability seems to me to awaken in people a thought that means that they are vulnerable, they're more likely to be harmed, eaten, hurt, destroyed. Whereas I would say that when I see people step into transparency and hence shamelessness, that they have become much less what people think of as vulnerable. And we're just persnickety around words back and forth.
Yeah, no, but I like it. Yeah,
I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's beautiful. I did this podcast. So I had this series called The Vulnerable Hero, and I was talking about my own healing journey and where I was along the way and what I was dealing with. In this one episode that I titled, Are Your Badges of Honor Your Shackles of Shame? And it's like, I meet so many people. It's like, well, I was beaten as a kid, or yeah, my old man used a belt, or yeah. And it's like this badge. It's like, unless you went back,
I follow exactly what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? It's
and
like,
that's why
it goes so far.
You're right. And that's why in the third day of my class, the number of people that were sexually assaulted has become 10 times more than the first day, because what disappeared was the shame. But I mean, I don't think shame is accidental. I think that it's installed on purpose in order to control children.
Yes, that's right.
I don't think in every culture there would always have to be shame. And I don't think any other life form would know how to experience it any more than they'd know how to spell it.
Yeah, that's right.
And where does it come from? It comes from people who are installing it, I believe, and they install it into you when you're too young to scratch an itch.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't, it continues. It's not that they do and then they stop. But what we've done with children, gosh, I remember I was with this gal and, oh gosh, I was nuts about her, but I do think she might have had one or even two screws kind of loose. Anyway, she has this little 4-year-old, cutest little guy ever. But I mean, they have their own thing going on. And Lucas, I am not such an asshole that I'm going to get in the middle of that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was danger. So I never said anything till one day I just couldn't not. Here's what happens. I forget what the little guy did, but pissed her off. Nothing new with that. She sat up She pointed at him. Her face darkened. Her voice came out all gravelly, weird. And she said, "He's watching you." And I thought, oh my God, the rest of the screws have fallen out. And even the kid stopped what he was doing and his eyes opened wide. And he's pretty good at ignoring her, but he didn't ignore that. She says it again. "He's watching you." And then she says, "Santa." I said, "Sweetness." I don't do this, but I did it. I said, "Sweetness, it's the 17th day of September."
Which is my birthday, by the way. So good.
There you go.
Good
See, we're connected psychically.
That's right.
She said, "I said nothing about this in August."
Yeah.
So, I mean, in order to get, it's tricky. You got to get little Billy to go to school even when he doesn't want to, and keep his pants on when he's there.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
And I think you do it by utilizing what I call moralistic thought, which has to do with credit, blame, pride, shame, backed up by he knows when you are sleeping. You better watch out. You better not cry. I mean, when you think of, I mean, how significant is privacy? And notice we provide none of it for children. I knew that no matter what the hell I was doing, every single moment of the day, I was being watched by this weird ass tooth fairy thing that had some weird fetish where it was going to pay me for a bloody tooth. This crazy rabbit that was able to get all around the globe hiding all these weird colored eggs. Santa, who was a whole other story. And if they happen to fall asleep on the job, there's always God, who not only is judging everything I do, but everything I think.
Yes. I'll tell you a story to affirm what you're saying. So when I was 17, so I was in this family structure. It wasn't until I was 34 that I finally broke away. And then it wasn't until I was 36 I started having flashbacks of everything. And father 3 had never bathed my children one time. I couldn't be around. I mean, it was just a hellish life. But when I was 17, I dated this gal, and I went to this event. And then I went to dinner at Red Robin and drove her home. I remember this very clearly, what time I got in, because it was 11 o'clock that she needed to be home. And I pulled right in like 10:50 in her driveway, just pulled in, car was idling, didn't even get a chance to say anything. I just pulled right up, and this truck came right up behind me, boom, with its brights on flashing, and it scared the crap out of me. And I was like, it scared her too. We were both scared. And I'm like, what the heck? And I look, I'm like, I think that's my dad. Now, I didn't tell anyone where I was.
Your dad.
My
dad.
Yeah,
Your
my
dad.
dad. My dad. Yeah. Yeah. It'd be a different story if I'd say, okay, it's her dad. No, it was my dad. And I get out, I'm like, what the heck's going on? I'm like, my first thought was, how did he even know where I was? I'm not late. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm like, was already terrified to do anything wrong. But I finished the story about God. So I get out, I'm like, what's going on? He's like, get home now. So I'm like, whoa, God, I'm going to really get it now. Like, what did I do now? So I get home, and the next morning, he doesn't talk to me. I get home the next morning, I talk to him. I say, how did you know where I was? And this is before cell phones. Like, how did you know where it was? And he said, God told me. And I literally believe this is how the whole power. So you're talking that God. Now, in hindsight, now I understand the network, the gal I was dating, which was set up by my family, who's also part of this like thing, and they somehow told him where I was. But
I see.
You see, it wasn't God. It wasn't until years later I had to figure out, well, how did he literally know? But that spiritual abuse in any Santa form, Easter egg bunny, tooth, it's all a form of spiritual abuse, because it's a being in the spirit realm that manifests in physical realm that you cannot see. And it's terrorizing. And I find it no accident too. And this might trigger a lot of people listening, but you know, my intention is to love you. Santa is an anagram for Satan. And Satan, in the archetype of the biblical narrative, whether it's the Hebrew Bible and the Judaism view of it or the Christian narrative, is to accuse. Satan is the accuser. So what makes us, you did. So everything he knows, if you've been sleeping, he's going to accuse you. You're bad. Everything's about accusing. And I find so often victims of trauma feel accused like we've done something wrong. And that's the model of shame. It's like shame and accusation go hand in hand. It's an interesting relationship, like our shadow to our physical body. It's like tied to shame is accuse. You know, the girl that gets raped has an affair, a high schooler, I just heard about this, had an affair with the pastor. The pastor is like in his mid-30s, family, kids, and this 15-year-old girl starts sleeping with the pastor, and guess what? The church banishes the girl, say she's a harlot, she seduced the pastor, forgives the pastor, and it's like, what the hell? Accuse the victim to protect the perpetrator. And all these forms of spiritual
I hear your love and your care for all these people that have been victimized, Lucas. I do want to share with you,
please,
that in the beginning then in the story that I told you with that gal, and then afterwards over and over and over, I got really on fire with an interest in how can we cause things to get better for these people. And I began really paying attention to what they taught me and others who were into mental health stuff, what to do for people that were hurting. I think that the vast majority of what's being offered to people that are dealing with these kinds of issues is mostly useless, and then also significantly harmful.
Yeah.
I can tell you that more than one person told me that the only thing worse than her rape was her treatment for rape.
Yes.
Good news is, I think we figured out how to get people better quickly and painlessly. And so that's my mission now, to teach people to move forward and carry that forward. I think that what most people in the mental health industry believe is that the reason you're feeling bad is because you haven't felt bad enough. And a whole lot of the treatment is based on doing what's possible to get people to feel bad so that they can feel better. And it took me, I'm embarrassed to say, quite a while to figure out that that was freaking stupid, that you don't get people to feel better by getting them to feel bad. And if it didn't work, it meant you didn't get them to feel bad enough.
Right.
And I think that's what's going on. I think it's what's going on in grief groups. By the way, I wrote a book on grief recently, available on Amazon. It's called Grief Isn't Sacred. I think in grief groups, people get together to learn that it's okay to feel grief. I started looking at all the other books out there on grief, and they were different, but they all said one thing: it's okay to feel bad.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, it ain't okay with me. It is not okay with me for you to feel bad. It's not okay with me that you feel bad about the passing of a loved one. It's not okay with me for you to feel bad about having been raped, abused, gang raped. It's not okay with me for you to feel bad because the other people in your platoon got killed. And we've figured it out in terms of ways of moving people through things that are gentle, often enjoyable, and quickly pay off. And if somebody who's trained by me doesn't get you better, what they will do is they'll say, hey, I'm really sorry I didn't get you better. That's on me. We never tell people you were resistant. You weren't ready to change. You didn't care enough. You didn't try hard enough.
Right.
You didn't have enough motivation.
Right.
If I didn't get you better, I didn't do my job. And then it is my job to find somebody else who will do it better.
It's beautiful. That's accountability. It's accountability. It's also what I mean by soul contract when I brought that up at the beginning, because what it does is reclaims our power. And when we don't feel power, we fall prey to anyone that asserts power over us. And I love what you're saying is our job is, if it falls on me, if I don't get you better and you're better, it's
well, there you go. Because you just got it. That responsibility means power.
Yes.
And if I begin meeting with you saying, well, I'm here and I care about you and I'm going to be supportive, but you getting better is up to you. Well, you getting better is up to me. I want the responsibility because I want the power.
Yes. Yes.
And I want to get it done for you. And we can. And we can.
I loved the video you have on your website, and everyone, like I said, I'll put this in the show notes, just the testimonials of people. And I love, for me, there's females, and I think the default, and this is not to minimize any female's experience, but I love seeing that there is a man in there, an older man, maybe in his 50s or 40s, that talks to her. And it's like, it's everyone. It's every color, every lifestyle, every person, everyone. And all of us get to heal. All of us get to go to your workshops, go to your, to work with the people. This is the time. Jon, I've heard this over and over, and I've talked about this on this podcast. The first comes truth. I've heard this download, and it's rang like a bell in my head for the past couple of years, is first comes truth, then comes healing. And truth is a very, there's the universal truth, this Raphael painted the School of the Masters, where Plato and Aristotle have the debate of Western philosophical thought of universal truths or particular truths. And so there are universal truths. However, if someone doesn't feel safe enough to share their personal truth, they'll never experience universal truth. I find this to be. And so truth, sharing, experiencing, but also going through it to heal. And that it's like the state of healing is the state of what's the Japanese pottery with the gold flecked infused pottery? It's kintsugi or something like that, where this shogun or the emperor had his pot, it broke, and he tried to put it back together with all his best people in the land, and they made it look terrible. So they re-broke it, and they infused gold flecked glue and put it back together. And it's this art form now in Japan. And I thought healing is like that. The pot before it's broken is a pot. Great. Everyone knows a pot, but it's not as valuable as the pot that's been broken and literally infused with gold and put back together. And I find that is this practice that you're doing.
What an outstanding thing to say. My goodness.
We are more valuable being broken and healed than we ever were never being broken. Truly. Literally, figuratively, metaphorically, however we want to slice and dice this thing. And I want to know
that there are two big missions, and one is to get things put back together, but I'm also really up to whatever we can do to stop some other kid from being raped, degraded, beaten, humiliated, shamed, and maybe change the institutions that use shame as a way to control kids' behavior.
Yeah. It's a beautiful time, and you're a beautiful soul on a beautiful mission.
Thank you, Lucas. That's so kind.
It's true. I'm glad. I'm like looking at you like I want to hang out with you. This is very Very
Well,
beautiful.
my goodness, I hope that this is our first meeting, but I don't feel it will be the last, and I'm always would be delighted to hear from you and to have a chance to be here with the wonderful people that listen to you and learn from you.
Thank you.
So I had a great time, and you could and I'd be delighted to do it again and even again and again. So
I would
I'm
love
certainly
that.
here for you as you've been here for so many others.
Thank you. I then it will be so. This will be, we'll call it part one, not entitled, but in just our agreement. It's part one, and we'll have
Well,
many.
now it's on the recorder.
Yeah,
There's
that's
a big,
right.
big freaking mic in front
That's
of your
right.
face.
I'm so honored. Again, I want to just say thank you. And I will put your information, I'll put the website, Rapid Resolution Therapy. And again, I just want to honor you and acknowledge you for the mission. It's
Thank you, sir. We're available globally.
okay.
We're looking to be there and make a difference. And we have people from from the Congo and from every place. I'm embarrassed to say that I can't spell a lot of the places people who are coming to us are from.
Wow.
Well, that's okay. The problem is I can't even pronounce some of them.
Yeah.
But I never would have thought that we would have an audience made up of people from places I can't even pronounce. And I'm excited that that's taken place. Thanks so much for your kindness and sharing your wonderful audience and your microphone with me today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. Well, dear brothers and sisters, thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining the journey of seeing the hurting get healed, the healed go out and heal others, for us to stand in our sovereignty, to remember our worthiness, to receive love, release fear, and be the light that you are already. Nothing to do, just be. I bless you all. I love you all. I am Lucas Mack. This is the Golden Rule Revolution, and I'll talk to you on the next episode. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for listening. For support in your journey, go to my website, lucasmack.com.